10, 9, 8. Go for main engine start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, we're ready to go to the next step. And the next step is to put that black ring on, which is going to hold that hook from actually coming completely away from the engine mount. So we're going to put a little bit of glue, a ring of glue on there, and then just slide that into place. This is already pretty dry enough to hold that in place. So I'm going to use the white glue, the yellow glue, the carpenter's glue, and we're going to just smooth some of it around where that ring will be. Again, keeping it away from the actual hook, glue away from the hook itself. Okay, and before that dries, we're going to take this on, and it's going to be kind of a tight fit, and we're going to push it up against that ring, and it won't take much to actually hold it in place. And we'll smooth out some of this glue here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some more glue on this edge here to actually make a fillet and make it stronger and much better. But now we have an actual retaining system for this hook. And off into the next step. Alrighty, we are set with that piece there, and now we're going to put the other centering ring on this one line that I marked hook, and it's going to actually go just right over this hook, and the line is already in place. Now I also, if you notice, I put an F here and with an arrow, but that's for the front. Amazing, you know, it seems pretty rudimentary, but putting that on there may help you, because if you glue something in backwards on the wrong side, it can be a real pain in the neck. So we're going to, again, put the glue on there, making it thin enough so we can see through to the pencil mark. And coming up short on that hook itself. Okay, on goes the second ring. And again, make sure the notch is correctly placed. We're going to put that, make sure it is centered with the pencil mark. And we should have the engine mount almost ready to go. Okay, we're ready for the next step to finish off this engine mount here. And what I'm going to do is we're going to put in the staging, what they call the staging cone, which is a little black piece here. And that is actually going to go on the end of this assembly here. And it's going to fit in right there. Now, being plastic, we're going to have to use a couple different types of glues here. Now, the instructions, they suggest that you use regular model glue, which will soften this plastic and get it to stick to the wood or to the paper. That sometimes actually works, but best be sure, especially with these big engines, best be safe than sorry. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple things to reinforce this. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a rough sanding stick, and I'm going to actually sand the inside of the ring so it has a little more bite with the glue. That way it's not super smooth and the glue will just come unhinged. Now you can use sandpaper, or if you want a stronger bond, you can actually take a knife and you can score this. You just have to be careful you don't score it too much to tear the plastic. But this will make it so the glue will get in there and give you a little more bit of a bite. So we'll go around the edge of the tube here, just scoring it. You just have to do it on that inner lip. And just for good measure, we're going to roughen it up a bit here. And then we will be ready to install. Okay, MouseWorks fans, little shameless plug here. This is one of my tools that I sell on my MouseWorks website, and this has actually got a sanding pad on the end, and it's made it cut at an angle. So this is the rough stuff. This is the I believe it's the 230 grit on here, and it actually gets into that ring real good because it's got the right angle and everything, and it's got enough bite to really grab into it. So anyways, you can get these on my MouseWorks website, and they're not too expensive, and it has a pack of 5 different grits, and it goes all the way to the polishing. You don't want to polish this because you want it as rough as you can. So anyways, great tool for the job. Okay, we're ready to install that little cone, and for this I'm going to do a little technique I came up with myself that will make sure that if one type of glue doesn't hold, the other one should. And I call it the dot dash technique. What I'm going to use is I'm going to use the plastic molding cement. This stuff here from Testers has a little needle applicator, makes it real easy to use. Then I'm going to use some super glue as well. So what I'm going to first do is on the edge here where the ring goes, is I'm going to make some dashes of the plastic glue, leaving gaps in between. And that's where the super glue is going to go, in dots. Okay. Now that's going to take a little bit to set up, so we have some time to work with it. I'm going to put some super glue on a piece of paper here and take a toothpick and give you a close-up here of what we're doing. So I'm just going to take the super glue, and in between those model glue points is I'm going to put some super glue. What this will do is the super glue will hold this long enough for the model glue to soften the plastic and adhere. So it's twofold. It's pretty good technique. Okay, so now that we've got that on there, we can install this cone, and we're going to put it on and rotate it slowly until it starts to catch and starts to get sticky. Once it does that, we'll just leave it and let it dry. And once it's dry, I'm also going to go in here to the back side of it. I'm going to reinforce this whole area with super glue. Okay, so we've got the fillet of super glue there, and if we want to hurry it along, we can use some accelerator and just touch it barely, let it wick in, and that will run all the way around the ring. So we only need to touch it in a few places, and that will actually get the super glue to dry. Make sure that it's straight, and we'll be able to move quickly to the next step. Alrighty, the next step in the instruction is going to actually show the engine mount going into the lower stage with the wing or the fence as well. But we want this to be super dry before we try to fit it in there, because if it's not dry and you push it in there, it can get crooked, which we don't want. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to let that dry, and while it's drying I can actually skip ahead to this step here, which is the engine mount for the upper stage. So I'll go ahead and using the instructions, I will mark the slug, the engine slug at 1/4 inch, and mark the tube just like I did the other one, and then we'll put the other rings on it, which are letter K, which do not have those baffles in it. So we'll go ahead and get that started and get it marked up. Okay, I'm ready to put the engine block in the upper stage engine mount, and again I've marked off basically where the rear ring is going to go, and I marked it as rear ring or R ring, and then the front ring will go actually right up against this edge, so we don't need to mark that. But then I've got the mark here for where the engine block's going to be. So again, this time I'm going to actually go from this side, and I'm going to mark my little glue stick here, and this will tell us how far, again, we want to put it in and smear that glue. So again, with the tight bond, and tight bond dries pretty darn quick, so we'll have to clean that off. Make sure you cap it, because it'll give you issues if you don't. Okay, I'm going to take the glue. And with the mark on the stick, we're going to put it in the right place. Again, you don't have to be too neat. You just want to get it in the general area because it's going to push against all this glue. Okay, so now we've got the block that we're going to put in. We also have the dummy engine, which now uses a shorter gap. So I marked that to, I believe it was a 1/4 inch. Let's see, 1/4 or half. It was actually, looks like 1/4 inch. So yeah, so we're going to put the block in again and shove it into the end here until it hits the glue, and then stop it at that line. Pull it back, test it maybe just to make sure it didn't get glued to the ring, and pull the ring back. So again, we got the ring in there. We're going to put some glue in the top there as a fillet to keep that thing in place. We're moving right along. Okay, these are the other rings. Just make sure you get the right rings on the right pieces. The one has the baffle holes. This one does not. We'll cut these out. And get them ready for installation into this upper motor mount. Again, good sharp knife helps. And believe it or not, paper will dull the knife faster than almost anything else. So make sure you keep a sharp blade in your handle. Okay, we are ready to go to the next step. Okay, one of the things that I have to go back to the other rings, and I'm going to do on this one, which I missed, was these little notches that that you cut out from the cardboard, just to make sure everything fits well. I'm going to sand them down a little bit. And it just takes a couple of swipes with a sanding stick or sandpaper. Not too much, you don't want to flatten it, but you do want to just make sure it doesn't get hung up when you put it inside the body tube. This part doesn't matter as much, but I'm going to sand those as well and get them ready to install. Okay, again, gluing on these rings. Going to make sure I got them on the right area. Going to put the glue on the ring mark and then smooth it out thin enough to see the ring, or the mark I should say. Alrighty, we're ready to put the rear ring on. Again, just slowly move it into position, make sure it's lined up with that pencil line, and by getting rid of those little nibs on the inside, it's going to lay a little flatter and then let the glue be a stronger joint. Okay, got that side set. Now the other side, it's actually just on the front, so we don't have to be too accurate. I'm just going to set mine slightly back in from the front, and then that way I can actually make sure the ring is lined up correctly. Plus it'll give me a little bit of a lip so I can put a fillet on the other side, on the front side of it. So we're going to set that in, but we're going to give it just a little bit. See, I'm just going to make sure I center it, but I want just a little bit of an edge there, just so I can get a bead of glue around there so it doesn't rip this piece off. Again, it's all about the details. Okay, while that engine mount is drying, again, I can skip ahead to the next step. And basically what we're going to do on the next step is mark the tube for all the fins. And you can see here, there's the tube there, and then that's the fin guide, which we had talked about earlier, and it's on this page here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it out, since it's an exact size. Just make sure you don't cut up the whole instruction sheet, because you'll still need that. Okay. So now I'm just going to make sure this outside line is where I cut it. And you want it to be just about as precise as possible, cutting it along the line here. You can use an X-Acto knife and a straight edge if you want, but scissors are just as easy. Just take your time. Make sure to cut along the line. Okay. Okay. And the little letters FL mean fin line. Okay, so we've got that cut out as best we can. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually wrap it around the tube, and we want to put it pretty close to the end, that way we can get it square. But if you line these little, they give you a couple little hash marks here, you line those up, then it should be square. And what we're going to do is we're just going to tape that in place. We'll get those lines as lined up as possible. Okay, so now we've got it taped on, and it's pretty tight to the tube, and then we're going to actually make little tick marks on where the paper says fin line. So we'll mark that all the way around on all the fin lines, and be ready to make some longer lines. Okay, now that we've got the fin lines tick marked here, you can also tape this to the tube if you don't want it to move while you're doing the tick marks. But if again, if you do it pretty tight, you don't have to worry about it. So we're going to actually remove that paper. Just hang on to it just in case you have to go and make some new marks. And now we want to make the actual lines longer so we can actually see where our fin units are going to go. And for that, you can use either a door jamb, or you can use, if you've got this Estes tool, we're going to use that. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this slider piece off. And what we're going to do is on the bottom of this tool are some markings for different size tubing. So this is a BT60, so we're going to use this side, says 60. Basically, we're going to put this in there in the cradle. We're going to line up those marks, and we're going to actually make a little bit longer line than what is already there. And you can press this piece to the tube and it will center itself. So we're going to take our pencil and we're going to find that little tick mark that's in there, and we're going to just make a small line like so, just like that. Then what we're going to do after we make all those lines is we're going to take this, since we want to make this a little bit longer, and we are going to use this edge here to make the line a little bit longer. So you can, if you're not sure about being steady with your hand, you can actually take a rubber band and put it around this so it holds tight while you make those marks. So we'll get it as close as we can, and then we're going to mark as far as we can to the end of the tube. And there we have a nice straight line, and we'll do that to all the fin tick marks and have it the length of this piece, which should be plenty for those forward fins.
Okay, we've let the engine mount dry.
this one here, which is the booster stage, and we're ready to put it inside the booster body tube. So according to the instructions, we are to glue it in and put a ring of glue where the first baffle is here, and then where the second baffle is, and it's all measured by pushing this little piece in here into this cone, and that actually sets the distance. So what we're going to do is, I want to again get the glue in the right place instead of gluing the whole thing all over the place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to measure, because this is actually going to go up against here. So when I push it in there, it's actually going to look like so. So I'm going to actually mark here and here for the glue lines. So I will get my pencil here, and we'll get a little better picture here for you. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to take these two, match them up, and it's going to be approximately here, and approximately here. Okay, so now I've got marked on my tube where I want basically my glue lines here. Now when I put the glue in there and then push this in there, what I want to make sure I do is, they don't really mention it in the instructions, but they kind of show it, this engine retaining hook needs to be between the fins, because if you have it where the fins are, it actually, the fins can interfere with it trying to open it up and get the engine in and out. So just make sure that the actual engine hook is between, somewhere around like that. Okay, so we will grab some glue, and again for this part we're using Titebond carpenter's glue. More on there. Okay, using my little cuticle stick, and I'm going to measure how far this cuticle stick should go in the actual tube for the glue. Again, I can do it from either side, this side or that side, doesn't really matter, I can reach both of them. So I'm going to take some of the glue and start smearing it around. Now this tube is actually big enough that I could probably use my finger to get it in there, but I'd rather do this where I can actually measure and get it so there's not just a super excess of glue. Okay, and then we will do the same for the inside. Now this we can actually just, don't really have to measure it, it's all going to be on the edge of it here. Get a little more glue. And we will use a fillet to hold it in a little better once we're all done. Okay, so now we've got that glue in there, you can kind of see that. So now we're ready to push this piece in, again keeping the engine hook where the line is. And it's getting kind of slow trying to push it in there. The glue's a little sticky, and now I'm going to use this piece to actually set that piece in the rocket. And let's make sure it's at the right length. So we're going to use this. We're actually just going to push it in and then remove it before this actually gets glued in there. So, okay, so now we've got that glued in there like so. That's ready to go. And I will actually go ahead and I'm going to fill in some of the areas here. Put a little fillet inside here. Just making sure I don't cover up those holes. So I'm going to go around the whole piece like that, and then the front side, and we'll have it reinforced.